The worst part wasn't the dare. It was how easy it was for everyone to laugh. Ethan was halfway through his second glass of bourbon when he said it. 40 years old. Backyard full of investors and neighbors pretending to be friends. String lights overhead. The grill smoking too much. That sweet, burnt meat smell hanging in the air. "You know what? Lily," he said, loud enough for the whole patio to hear. "You're always here. Every birthday. Every dinner. Try disappearing for once. I swear no one would even notice." A couple of his business partners chuckled. Someone actually clapped like it was a joke that landed. "My name is Lillian Harper. I am 33 years old. I didn't cry. I didn't snap back. I didn't do what I usually do, which is smile tight and swallow it. I just stood there holding a paper plate that had gone soft from barbecue sauce and said, 'Okay.' Ethan blinked. 'Okay, what?' 'Okay, I'll disappear.' There was this weird pause, like the music from the speaker had dipped, even though it hadn't. My dad cleared his throat. 'That's enough.' 'Ethan.' But he said it the way you tell a dog to get off the couch. No real heat. My mom stared at her wine glass. Didn't look at me. Ethan laughed again. 'Relax. It's a joke.' 'It's not,' I said. 'But that's fine. You ever notice how people get uncomfortable when you don't react the way they expect? It's almost funny.' I set my plate down on the edge of the patio. Sauce smeared on my fingers. I wiped them on a napkin that disintegrated in my hand. I grabbed my coat from the back of a chair. 'Lily,' my dad said, sharper now. 'Don't be dramatic. I'm not.' Ethan shook his head, already turning back to his guests. 'She'll be back tomorrow.' He said, 'She always comes back.' That part hit harder than the dare. I walked through the house instead of around it. The kitchen smelled like frosting and charcoal. Someone had left the birthday cake open on the counter. White icing, perfect, untouched. 40 candles waiting. I paused in the hallway for half a second. Just long enough to feel stupid, like maybe I was overreacting, like maybe I should go back out there and laugh it off. But I didn't. I stepped outside. The air was colder than I expected. I swear it felt cleaner out there than it had all night. In my coat pocket was a thick envelope, cream paper, heavy. It had been sitting there the entire party, pressing against my ribs every time I moved. I hadn't opened it in front of them. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted one thing that was just mine. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan already. "Don't make this a thing." I stared at the screen. Then I turned the phone off. Not silent. Off. I slid into the driver's seat. The leather was cold. My hands were steady on the steering wheel, which surprised me. He told me to disappear. He just didn't know I already had somewhere to go. I pulled the envelope out of my pocket and laid it on the passenger seat. Sloan and Hartwell Estate Law was printed across the front in dark blue ink. I started the engine. I didn't open the envelope right away. I drove first, crossed the river, let the city swallow me. My hands were still steady, which felt wrong. By the time I reached my apartment in the Pearl District, it was close to midnight. I locked the door behind me and leaned against it like someone might follow. No one did. I dropped the envelope on my kitchen counter, stared at it. Sloan and Hartwell Estate Law. I swear my first thought was parking tickets. Or some mistake. I didn't think inheritance. That kind of thing doesn't happen to people like me. That's what I'd been trained to believe. I opened it. Dear Miss Harper. My grandmother, Eleanor Whitmore, had passed away 6 weeks ago. I already knew that part. The rest hit slower. Primary beneficiary. Soul. The Eastmoreland Craftsman residence, appraised at approximately $2,400,000, an irrevocable trust totaling $7,300,000 in liquid and fixed assets. I sat down hard in the chair by the window. It made that cheap metal scraping sound against the floor. $7,300,000. I read it again. Out loud this time. Like maybe I was mispronouncing it. There was another envelope inside. Thinner. Handwritten. Lillian. That was it. No, dear. Just my name. This is not an inheritance. It is a correction. I pressed my thumb over the word correction until the ink smudged. I called the number at the bottom of the letter. It rang twice. Rebecca Sloan. A woman answered. Calm, direct. This is Lillian Harper. I was hoping you'd call tonight, she said. No small talk. I'm sorry for your loss. Is this real? Yes. That amount. Yes. Silence. Then she added, Your father will contest. Of course he would. On what grounds? Capacity. Influence. Whatever he can assemble quickly. She was sharp. I said, until the end. I know. She anticipated this. There's a cognitive evaluation from an independent physician completed 18 months before execution. It's airtight. Then why contest control? She said. Delay feels like power to certain men. I let that sit between us. There's more, she continued. 10 years ago, your grandmother attempted to establish an education trust for you. Your father intervened. I laughed. It came out wrong. He told her you lacked direction, Rebecca said, that family resources should prioritize your brother's graduate program. The room felt smaller. So she waited. Rebecca finished. She structured this so no one could take it from you again. I looked down at my phone. No notifications. No missed calls. Ethan thought I'd come back tomorrow. I folded the letter carefully and slid it back into the envelope. Ms. Sloan, I said. When does this become official 90 days? She replied. If no injunction succeeds, and if he tries, we fight. I ended the call and sat there in the quiet. The refrigerator hummed. That's all. He told me to disappear. He had no idea what he'd just dared me to walk into. And if he's willing to stall, to smear, to twist the story, what do you think he'll do when he realizes the house isn't his? I didn't call my parents the next morning, or Ethan, or anyone. I packed a bag instead, clothes, laptop, the envelope. A charger I almost forgot because my hands were doing that clumsy thing where you drop the same item twice and pretend you meant to. I left my apartment keys on the counter like I might not come back for a while. That felt dramatic. I did it anyway. I turned my phone on long enough to see 12 missed calls. 7 from Mom, 3 from Dad, 2 from Ethan. I stared at the list like it was a report card. For a second, I almost called back, like muscle memory, like training. Then I saw the little preview under Ethan's name from his text thread, "Don't make this a thing." My chest tightened. That stupid familiar shame. The one that says I'm the problem because I'm reacting to their cruelty instead of absorbing it quietly. I turned the phone off again. Not silent. Off. The Eastmoreland house looked smaller than I remembered. Or maybe I was bigger. The porch light was still on from when the realtor did the initial inventory. The lock stuck when I turned it. It always had. I had this weird urge to apologize to the door like it was my fault. Inside, it smelled like dust and old wood. One of the floorboards near the entry gave a soft groan when I stepped on it, like the house was annoyed I existed. I didn't cry. I did that thing where you don't cry because you're not safe yet, even if you're alone. I set my bag down in the hallway and just stood there. This was mine. $2,400,000 in walls and floorboards and cracked molding. $7,300,000 sitting somewhere in accounts I hadn't even seen yet. Mine. And still, this is the part I hate admitting. I felt like I was trespassing. Like Dad was gonna come around to the corner and tell me I was holding the flashlight wrong. My phone buzzed in my hand right before I powered it down again. Voicemail preview. Ethan. I listened anyway, because apparently I like pain. Lily. This is ridiculous. Dad says you're not answering. If this is about last night, grow up. We were joking. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was so clean, so easy. He got to say we were joking, and that was supposed to erase the moment I watched grown adults clap while I got humiliated in my own family's backyard. Another voicemail. Dad, you need to return my call immediately. There are matters regarding your grandmother's estate that require clarity. Require clarity. That's how he talks when he's nervous. Like he's signing a memo. Like I'm an employee who forgot to submit paperwork. I stared at the hallway mirror with the crack in the corner and caught my own face in it. I looked fine, which made me mad. Because if I looked fine, then maybe they were right and I was being dramatic. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe no. Stop. I walked into the kitchen and called Rebecca from the landline. The dial tone was sharp and old school, like the house was reminding me it had existed before my family's mess and it would exist after. He's moving fast, I said. He filed notice of intent. She replied, not a full petition yet, but he's assembling counsel. What kind probate litigator? Experienced. Of course he is. He's alleging undue influence. She said, suggesting you manipulated your grandmother. My fingers curled around the edge of the counter so hard it hurt. I barely saw her those last years. I said, he controlled access. I know, Rebecca said. That's in our documentation. Silence. Then she added, he's also questioning your financial stability. I swallowed. What does that mean? It means he's building a narrative, she said. And narratives move faster than facts. My stomach dropped like I'd missed a step. An hour later, Daniel called from a number I recognized. I picked up on the second ring because I didn't want to be alone with my own thoughts anymore. Where are you? He asked. Safe. Ethan's telling people you're spiraling. Spiraling, I repeated, like it was a word I could chew and spit out. He said you've been unstable since your grandmother died. Daniel continued, that you're not in a place to handle significant assets. That's convenient. Investors were at the party. Lily, this isn't just family. I sat down on the bottom stair in the hallway. The wood creaked under me. So, what's the plan? Daniel asked. Quieter now. I don't have one yet. You always have a plan. Not this time. A beat. You gonna come back and face him? He asked. I looked around the house. The scuffed baseboards, the cracked mirror, the hallway that still felt like it remembered me as a kid who stayed quiet. He said no one would notice if I disappeared. I said, so let's see how loud he gets when I don't. Daniel exhaled. You're playing with him. No. I said, I'm letting him talk. I hung up before he could say anything else. Then I walked into the backyard. The garden was overgrown. Dead vines wrapped around the fence like they'd been waiting for someone to cut them loose. One of the boards had a rusty nail sticking out, bent at an angle. I stared at it too long, like my brain needed something simple to focus on. My phone was off. My apartment was empty. My family was rewriting me in real time. And the scariest part wasn't the paperwork. It was the tiny voice in my head asking, what if their version of me is the one people believe? The notice didn't just arrive. It arrived with a courier, suit, clipboard, required signature. That's how you make something feel official. I called Rebecca before I broke the seal. He filed, she said. Not a question. What exactly? Petition to invalidate the trust. Alleging diminished capacity, undue influence, and financial exploitation. Exploitation. He's implying you manipulated your grandmother for access to assets. My stomach dropped. I opened the envelope. 42 pages. Legal language stacked like bricks. Charles Harper listed as petitioner. Formal request for temporary injunction. Immediate freeze of all trust distributions. Motion for court-ordered independent psychiatric evaluation of me. Of me. He's asking for a competency review. I said, yes. That's not just delay. No, Rebecca replied quietly. That's escalation. The kitchen felt smaller. Can he do that? I asked. He can ask, and if the judge grants it, then your financial control pauses pending review. And the narrative shifts. There it was. The real play. Is the money frozen? Effective immediately? Yes. All liquid disbursements suspended. Brokerage accounts flagged. You can't access a cent without court approval. I stared at the page. $7,300,000. Untouchable. The house I asked. Title remains in your name. But liens could be requested if litigation costs rise. How long emergency hearing in 10 days? Full evidentiary hearing in approximately 90. 10 days. He's not trying to win, I said slowly. He's trying to label me. Yes, and if I'm labeled unstable, then everything he said at the gala becomes retroactively credible. I sat down. The chair wobbled. I didn't fix it. My phone rang. Dad, I answered. You've seen the petition, he said. I've seen you request a psychiatric evaluation. This is procedural. You're asking the court to question my sanity. I'm asking the court to confirm stability before significant assets transfer. $7,300,000 makes you nervous. It should make you nervous. It doesn't. It should. His voice stayed calm. Too calm. You've isolated yourself, he continued, moved into that house abruptly. Cut off contact. That behavior will be scrutinized. You created that behavior. No, you chose it. After you told people I was unstable, I expressed concern. You built groundwork. Silence. Withdraw voluntarily, he said. We can restructure, place funds under joint oversight, family governance, meaning you, meaning protection. For who? For everyone. I laughed. It sounded brittle. You blocked my education trust 10 years ago, I said. Now you're protecting me. That was different. It always is. His voice hardened. If the court orders evaluation, you'll comply. And if I refuse, then the optics worsen. There it was. The word he really cared about. Optics. You're not protecting assets. I said, you're protecting control. He didn't deny it. After we hung up, Rebecca called again. He's added affidavits, she said. 2 former staff members from the nursing facility, suggesting your grandmother was confused near the end. She wasn't. We know that. But allegations create smoke, and smoke creates doubt. Yes. I stood in the middle of the kitchen. My hands were shaking now, not from fear of losing the money, from understanding the game. If he wins the narrative, he doesn't need to win the case. And if the judge even briefly questions my stability, how fast do you think investors decide I'm the liability Daniel showed up unannounced, knocked twice, didn't wait for me to say come in? You need to hear this before it spreads further, he said. Spreads where everywhere. He dropped his phone on the table. A screenshot of a group email. My father's tone all polished concern. We are deeply worried about Lillian's recent behavior. Significant assets require oversight. We are exploring all responsible options to ensure her well-being. Oversight. Well-being. I stared at it. Exploring what options I asked. Daniel hesitated. Conservatorship review. My throat went dry. They wouldn't. I said. They might. He replied. Ethan mentioned it at the fundraiser. What fundraiser last night? Downtown. He told a few partners you've been unstable, that you've isolated yourself in that house. I moved in 3 days ago. I know. I laughed, but it felt wrong. So now I'm unstable because I don't answer calls. You cut off contact. You walked out of his birthday. You're fighting a legal challenge. He's framing it as grief-induced erratic behavior. Grief-induced. That's almost poetic. I grabbed my phone and dialed Ethan before I could stop myself. He answered on the second ring. Look who's alive. You told people I'm unstable. I told them you're going through something. You floated conservatorship. That's Dad's language. But you didn't shut it down. Silence. You disappeared. Lily, he said. What did you expect? I expected you not to lie. I didn't lie. You implied I can't handle $7,300,000. You've never handled anything close to that. And you have. That's different. Because you're the son. Because I build things. I looked around to the kitchen, at the stack of legal documents, at my laptop open with spreadsheets mapping trust projections. I build too, I said. Not like this. Like what? Like someone who knows how to protect it. I let that sit. You think this makes you look strong? I asked quietly. I think it makes you look unpredictable, and that helps you. He didn't answer. Daniel watched me from across the room, jaw tight. If you go public, Ethan added, this gets uglier. It's already ugly. Then don't escalate. I ended the call. Daniel exhaled slowly. So what now? I stared at the email again, at the word oversight, at the subtle way they were trying to shrink me on paper. If they're willing to question my sanity in writing, to float legal control like it's casual conversation, how far do you think they'll go when the hearing date hits the gala was louder than I expected? Not music loud, ego loud, glass walls, concrete floors, the kind of place where every laugh bounces twice before it dies. The air smelled like expensive cologne and citrus cleaner. I stood outside long enough for someone to open the door for me out of habit. Inside, Ethan was near the bar, holding court, phased valuation at $12 million over 3 years. He was saying, family-backed stability, strong governance structure. Family-backed? That almost made me smile. A woman in a navy dress leaned in and whispered in his ear. He turned and froze. Not dramatically, just a flicker. The kind only someone who grew up watching him would catch. Lily, he said, smoothing it out fast. Didn't expect you. I know. 3 investors pivoted subtly, like sunflowers chasing something brighter. Dad appeared within seconds. He always did that. Insert himself into any shifting center. This isn't appropriate, he said under his breath. Is circulating language about my mental fitness appropriate? I asked. His jaw flexed. We're mitigating risk. For who Ethan stepped closer. If this is about the preliminary motion, it is, I said. And it isn't. I pulled the folder from my bag. Thick, heavy, not dramatic, just official. Before this goes further, I said calmly, I thought clarity would be useful. I handed Ethan the first document, certified deed transfer, Eastmoreland residence, recorded. My name. He scanned the header, and I watched the exact second he understood that wasn't reversible. Dad reached for the second document before I offered it. Court denial of emergency injunction. Temporary suspension of the freeze lifted. No conservatorship review granted pending evidentiary threshold. His lips thinned. That's procedural, he said. Yes, I replied. And so was your filing. I laid the 3rd page flat on the cocktail table between us. Trust confirmation. $7,300,000. Disbursement authority retained by sole trustee. An older man in a charcoal suit cleared his throat. Everything settled. Ethan didn't answer right away. And that hesitation. It landed harder than anything I could have said. It's a family dispute. He managed. I looked at the man directly. It's resolved at the preliminary level. The court declined to question my capacity. That word hung in the air. Capacity. Dad leaned closer to me. You're creating spectacle. You already did, I said. I'm correcting it. Ethan lowered his voice. You could have handled this privately. You implied I was unstable publicly. That wasn't my phrasing. You didn't stop it. One of the younger partners shifted. Is there ongoing exposure we should know about? Ethan's answer came slower this time. No material exposure. Slower. That was the crack. Dad tried again. This isn't final adjudication. No, I said. But it's enough to stop the narrative. The room wasn't loud anymore. It was attentive. You said no one would notice if I disappeared. I told Ethan. Steady, not raised. Turns out the only thing missing was documentation. His expression hardened. Not embarrassed. Calculating. This affects the development. He said. It always did. And if lenders reconsider, then they reconsider based on facts. I replied. Dad stepped forward, voice low and sharp. You're risking long-term relationships. I'm not the one who filed to have me evaluated. That silenced him. For a moment, I saw something in Ethan I hadn't before. Not anger, not confidence, fear of losing control of the room. One of the investors finally asked the question that mattered. Is governance stable? I answered before Ethan could. Yes. Simple. Clean. He glanced at me like I'd crossed a line. Maybe I had. I gathered the remaining copies and slid them back into my bag. I'm not here to fight, I said. I'm here so no one builds projections on misinformation. No applause, no explosion. Just recalibration. I walked toward the exit, heels sharp against concrete. Behind me, conversation resumed, but softer, more cautious. Outside, the air was cool and damp. It smelled faintly like rain settling into pavement. My phone buzzed before I reached the car. Dad. I let it ring, because inside that building, something had shifted. Not in my favor, not fully, but enough that next time he says the word unstable, someone might ask for proof instead of nodding along. The calls didn't stop after the gala. They multiplied. Not friends, not family, attorneys, analysts, people who said things like, "We're conducting routine due diligence. Ms. Harper. Is there active litigation tied to the Eastmoreland property? It's under review," I said. Is there concern regarding your fiduciary control of $7,300,000? I am the lawful trustee. That's not what we're hearing. I ended that one. By mid-morning, Rebecca called. He filed supplemental affidavits, she said. From who? 2 former nursing staff. They're claiming your grandmother was confused during her final months. She wasn't. I know. But it complicates the emergency hearing. Complicates how the judge may order a temporary financial conservator until capacity issues are fully litigated. A conservator over me, I said. Over the assets. Technically. Which means over me? Yes. I felt that land somewhere deep. Then Ethan finally called. You're burning everything down, he said. No greeting. You tried to declare me incompetent. That was Dad's filing. You stood beside him. Silence. My financing is frozen. He said, lenders flagged risk exposure after your name hit court dockets. I didn't put it there. You made it spectacle. You made it strategy. His voice shifted. Less anger. More calculation. If a conservator gets appointed, even temporarily, your credibility collapses. That's what you're counting on. I'm counting on stability. For you. For everyone. Stop saying that. He inhaled sharply. 3 partners withdrew letters of intent this morning. Because you hesitated. Because you look volatile. I look defensive. You look unpredictable. And that helps you how it doesn't. He snapped. It ruins both of us. There it was. Mom arrived just after sunset. No makeup. No small talk. He added the staff statements, she said immediately. He thinks it strengthens the narrative. I know. He's terrified. Of losing money. Of losing authority. She stepped closer. You think this is about $7,300,000, she asked quietly. It's about his mother choosing you. That hit harder than the petition. He can't rewrite that, I said. He can try. We stood in the kitchen. The faucet still dripped. I still hadn't fixed it. If the court appoints oversight, she continued, this drags for years. I won't let it. You might not get to choose. She looked older than she had last week. Your father thinks pressure corrects people. She said, he's wrong. Maybe, she replied. But pressure also reveals them. She left before I could respond. Ethan's financing is unstable. Dad is escalating. The court might question my capacity. The narrative is shifting again. If they manage to convince a judge I need oversight, even briefly, how much damage does that do before truth catches up? I started with the backyard. Not because it meant anything, because it was ugly. Dead vines twisted around the fence like they'd been choking it for years. The soil was packed so tight the shovel bounced back the first time I pushed down. I bought cheap gloves and tore through the first pair before lunch. Daniel showed up with coffee I didn't ask for. "You're really doing this yourself," he said, watching me wrestle a root that refused to move. "For now. You could hire a crew." I could, but I need to feel it give. He crouched beside me and tugged once. The root snapped. Clean. "Ethan's development is officially paused," he said. "Lenders want updated governance disclosures." I kept digging. "That's not my objective." "I know." He stood up. "You look steadier. Don't jinx it." Later that week, I met the financial advisor Rebecca recommended. Gray suit, no wasted words. $7,300,000 requires structure. He said, "We'll allocate conservatively. Municipal bonds, broad index funds, controlled annual distribution. Do it. No speculative real estate, no sudden ventures. Not right now." He studied me. "You're not spending to prove a point I'm building to avoid one." He nodded once. I enrolled in a landscape design certification program. Night classes. No announcement, no explanation. Mom called 2 days later. "Your father thinks this is a phase." She said, "Let him. You're not angry I'm busy." After we hung up, I stood barefoot in the dirt. The soil was softer now, looser. This isn't about winning anymore. It's about choosing what actually grows when no one's watching. 2 years later, they called my name in a room that smelled like burnt coffee and damp coats. Emerging Designer of the Year? Lillian Harper. The applause wasn't thunderous. It didn't need to be. I walked up, took the plaque. It was lighter than I expected. Everything important usually is. Dad sat in the third row, posture straight, expression measured. Mom beside him, hands folded too tightly in her lap. Ethan near the back, close to the exit like he wasn't sure if he'd stay. I leaned into the microphone. "I used to think disappearing was safer," I said. "Quieter, easier." A few heads lifted. I thought if I stayed small enough, things would stay stable. I let that settle. They didn't. I didn't mention the house, or the $7,300,000, or court filings. None of that felt relevant here. What changed wasn't the money. I said, it was realizing I don't need permission to take up space. That was it. No flourish. Afterward, Dad approached me near the wall. "You handled yourself well," he said. "I know." A faint exhale. "I misjudged you. You tried to manage me." He didn't argue. "I thought I was protecting the family," he said quietly. "You were protecting control." Silence. Not explosive. Just honest. Ethan gave me a single nod from across the room. Not reconciliation. Just acknowledgement. Later. Back at Eastmoreland. I stood barefoot in the yard. The soil was loose now. The fence darker with age. I don't hate them. I don't forgive them either. I just don't shrink anymore. And that's enough for now.